Morfine's M8S is another smaller than average mini PC with Intel's popular 4-core N100 entry-level processor. And when this mini found its way to my desk, I thought, oh crap, it's the same as the GMK Knuckbox G2. But while it does look the same on the outside, it performed like a very different mini. And if fan noise annoys you as much as it does me, then this one is one of the quietest actively cooled minis out there. But before we continue, have you lost a product key on your PC? EaseUS Keyfinder can recover and back up all product keys on your system. With this app, you can display product keys of Windows, Office, Adobe products, and more. You can also find Wi-Fi codes, browser accounts, and passwords. Try it for free with a link in the video description. So the Morefine M8S is currently $165 on Amazon.com, which includes 16GB of LPDDR5 soldered RAM and a 512GB NVMe SSD. It's a great price for a mini with these specs. The M8S comes with a manual, replaceable top lid if you prefer the space/planet theme, a monitor mount, power supply, and HDMI. I also received a travel adapter for my region. Thanks Morefine. The entire mini is pretty solid and doesn't feel El Cheapo. It also has an LED down the bottom which you can either turn off, yes please, or change color in the BIOS. And yep, green is still greed, same as with the Knuckbox G2.
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
The M8S has something on every side. The front has the power button. The right side, triple USB 3, 5GB. The rear has a USB-C port for power, Realtek dual gigabit LAN, and an audio jack. On the left side, dual HDMI 2.0 and a DisplayPort for triple 4K 60 displays. Wi-Fi and Bluetooth are handled by the Intel Wi-Fi 6 AX201 chip. The Intel N100 CPU in this box is great for everyday computing, such as office work. It's okay for photo editing and can handle up to 1080p simple video editing, but export times will be slow. It can play some esports titles, simple and older games, and can emulate systems up to the PS2 Wii era at 720p. But can it play GTA 5? Well, we'll try that later. The CPU also includes native AV1 video decoding and handles 4K 60 without a problem. But something you do need to be aware of is that a bunch of the N100 mini PCs I've reviewed performed very differently, and they definitely aren't all equal. Opening up this mini for access to the storage drive is easy. Just pop open the lid and there it is. Under the M.2 2242 NVMe drive is the M.2 Wi-Fi card. Memory is soldered on, which is what happens when you start shrinking the average mini PC further. Morfine's M8S comes with Windows 11 Pro. If you were to switch to a Linux distro like Ubuntu, you'll have everything working just fine like it did with my test off the USB drive. Alright, benchmark time. The Morefine M8S is on the higher end of the chart in single core performance. A 1% lower score between it and the top spot is pretty meaningless. In multi-core, there are two results since this mini PC has a 25 watt turbo limit by default. However, it can be up to 30 watts in the BIOS easily enough in turbo options, which is a maximum the N100 can handle. I just set PL1 and PL2 to 30 watts to force it either way. The 25 watt result is what most of the other minis achieve, but the 30 watt figure comes in at second place, which this time is less than 1% behind the top spot. So we're off to a great start. For the video encoding test, the M8S is again in second spot, with just over 1% separating it against the fastest N100 mini. The M8S also performs very well in the graphics benchmark, basically matching the Knuckbox G2 at the top of the N100 pile in DX11, but there isn't a lot of difference between most of the units. And in DX12, there's a similar result. So, the Morefine M8S has top-notch N100 CPU and iGPU performance as long as you tweak the BIOS. Alright, so I had a request to try Grand Theft Auto 5 on an Intel N100 CPU, so let's do it. It was unplayable at 1080p at around 15 FPS, but 720p is similar to how it performed on something like an Xbox 360 back in the day.
What's this? Local resistance? It supposed to go down like this. It never is. Come on, go! What the fuck is this? If I'm gonna die breathing right. You shouldn't have been a cop.
Lock it with half VSync for a pretty stable 30 FPS. If you're looking for a higher frame rate or resolution in this game, you'll need to look at a mini PC with better integrated graphics. Something like a Ryzen 5500U.
You guys alright? Fuck.
Idle power draw of the M8S is on the higher side at 11 watts. Max power draw was also on the higher end, reaching as high as 37 watts with a 30 watt power mode. This is probably due to being USB-C powered, which runs at a lower, more inefficient voltage than the barrel jack minis. Max CPU temp was great. Whether you're running it at 25 or 30 watts power limit, the CPU didn't go higher than 76C. But where the Morefine M8S really excels is fan noise. This is a very quiet mini PC. Under load, it's barely noticeable at all, which is very different from the Knuckbox G2. And this, along with its top performance, makes the M8S a very attractive mini PC. SSD max temperature for the SK900 NVMe drive looks unreliable. It showed as 45C throughout all testing, which just can't be right. That being said, I didn't experience thermal throttling during my testing, and the NVMe drive performs at PCIe Gen 3 X2 speed due to limited PCIe lanes available from these CPUs. Still, it's pretty good everyday performance. Alrighty then, so to summarize, the Morefine M8S is a top performer. It's also very quiet N100 actively cooled mini PC. CPU cooling is impressive, and for those looking for a USB-C powered mini, this one should be on the top of your radar. However, there are no additional storage options, and soldered LPDDR5 is not to everyone's liking. But 16GB by default is nice to have. A heatsink on the NVMe drive would have been a nice addition as well. I've been asked before why I only list pros and cons and don't inject much of my opinion to these reviews. Well, there's a lot of usage cases and subjective criteria for purchase decisions when it comes to these minis. But I will say that fan noise is my number one concern, followed by performance. So based on these factors, the Morefine M8S is one of my top budget mini PC picks. But if you want an even smaller mini that also performs well, check out Morefine's M6S, which is also a good choice. Cheers!